Welcome to Podcast Toten. My name's Red.
I'm Matt.
I'm Tech.
Today we're going to be taking inventory for Group 95, doing their job. So let's hear a little word from Maxis.
Gentlemen, allow me to take this opportunity to welcome you to Group 935. This is a prestigious moment in the history of our race. You represent the future of technological advancement. You are the pioneers of human discovery. In your hands lies the destiny of mankind. In our hands is a great power, and with that power comes a price. You have volunteered to be part of this great experiment, and with that decision comes the responsibility of absolute secrecy. No one is to know what you do, where you work, what our research has uncovered, or what our purpose will be. You will have no further contact with your governments or with your families. Your decision to fully dedicate your lives to Group 935 is absolute. In your lockers, you will find your Field Ops Manual, which will direct you should our manifesto get compromised. We cannot afford to let this power fall into the wrong hands, and therefore the Field Ops Manual should be considered your Bible. Make your preparations now. A new dawn is beginning for mankind.
Wow, Maxis, that's awesome, man. Welcome. Yeah, Group 95, awesome. Yeah, so we're going to be doing his job, taking inventory, looking at each of Group 95's facilities, kind of going into what defines those facilities, what were they built for, how do they fit into Group 95's whole plan. So we'll start probably, I guess, with their first facility, their founding facility. That would be Der Reese.
It's a tough one to...
They do a lot there.
Yeah, it's a tough one to wrap your arms around because it seems pretty straightforward. Not pretty straightforward, but let me rephrase. It becomes a much more expanded list as you move on through the series. So it's just funny to, just not realize where to start in the sense of, the giant robots being in the giant version. By the time you hit Moon, there's the quotes, about like the Vril projects going on there, which, weren't like totally unfounded in the sense that the Vril spacecraft were on the chalkboards, so like there was a little bit of that, but like, right, the animal testing you've got, like it's all very, it's such a wide, it's really emblematic of a founding site, that's just like, this is just where we have everything, what we're going to do it, where we're going to do it. It's yeah.
So like, if you look at like the first time the facility's defined, I guess you would look at like the signage. The first sign you see in like the courtyard says Waffenfabrik Der Reese. This is specifically a weapons factory.
Yeah.
That's I suppose its first purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the weapons for the Germans.
That would make sense, right? Because I think at least initially, maybe it was retconned, but wasn't it that the zombies were sort of a side effect thing that was discovered? So I guess it would make sense that they were probably messing around with the weaponry and stuff first.
It seems like it starts with weapons and then turns into whatever D-Glock is, if that's the teleporter or something else entirely.
That's fair enough. I almost thought, I guess, okay, right, the sign is good evidence that it started as a weapons factory, but because I so closely associated the turn of 935 with them signing with the Nazis and having, building weapons, I almost didn't think weapons were their first thing, but
well,
I guess what else would it have been?
Because Der Reese is a pretty huge campus. Because you look outside the map, you can see there's a place where there's like a butcher where they chop up veal. I remember that specifically for some reason.
Oh, that's kind of
There's a bunch of stuff
would
there.
Stand out.
So yeah, I mean, the timeline says that the first, it started because it was like a source of 115. Max just got sent there to investigate it.
Well, like what's kind of
built this facility there.
what's interesting too is, it probably is contradicted by what I'm about to say is contradicted by like the radios and stuff, but it would almost seem like, by that logic, the teleportation might have been the first thing that they would have done. Like before they started to weaponize everything, like I feel like that would have been, it kind of satisfies the like scientific curiosity and would explain why there's sort of this large facility that then was able to be mobilized into making mass producing weapons.
Yeah. Let me see. I think the timeline says like it started sometime after Richthofen joined Group 935. It was a couple years after it started. But yeah, I mean, this primary purpose seems to be working with 115 at least. So it's sort of the forerunner to every other facility in their 115 tests.
It's just interesting because so much of the facility, aesthetically and even just the way it's sort of laid out, revolves around the teleporters. And it's just kind of funny how that seems kind of like secondary. Because even when you kind of wonder the layout of the facility, I mean, obviously it's gameplay purposes, but it's like where were the like undead kept? Like what
Right. I would have loved to see a remake of that map with the whole facility.
Like the underground, yeah, that would have been cool.
Because it seems so much bigger than it actually appears in the game. There's so much going on we don't know about. So yeah, I mean, there's weapons development in particular. They actually built like the ray gun and the Wunderwaffe there.
Yeah, and you have to know there's even with the fact that we know that like Blom worked there, and I personally believe that he was doing some work with Steiner, and we know that well, okay, so I guess we know the rate Steiner's picked up in like the Arctic Circle. Sometime around there, we've got the Durice massacre, and so there's always a part of me that wonders whether or not Steiner has something to do with Durice, since like I said, we have Blom there who worked on chemical weapons for them, I believe. So it's just funny, even like in the name Durice the Giant, like that's just the name exemplifies that there's so many things going on there.
I think it would make sense, because if you think of the sort of that Nova 6 connection and how it's used in zombies, and then Nova 6's sort of connection to the campaign, and all that revolves around like mind control. So it's thematically fitting that all those pieces kind of link together too. That at least those ideas.
I always associate those ideas. Sorry to cut you off. I always associate those ideas with Kino, especially just because I mean, the Nova 6 crawlers appearing on the map.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the Richthofen mentions mind control experiments.
I guess it's like, if everything started at the genesis point of Durice, I mean, maybe then you could say why there's so many things going on there is because as they started to maybe break into separate divisions, like working on like teleportation, mind control, whatever, they would then move it to another facility. Mm-hmm. So maybe like that's kind of why then, Kino got that. Because at the very least, like sort of like how you have the research at the Pentagon that then gets taken to like Camp Edward and Nuketown and all the Broken Arrow sites. Exactly. Because there's just so much, and it's just weird too when you look at like all the other facilities. It kind of becomes hard to keep track of what makes each one unique. So I don't know. For me, I always feel like teleportation just stands out for Durice, because like I mean, story-wise, that's kind of like what sets Richthofen on the path, and how it gets to the moon, Shangri-La. So it's like,
right.
I feel like that would be and it's like fitting with the whole flytrap Durice thing, like the real conspiracy around it, Dyklock in the real world. So it would make sense that like weird anti-gravity time travel stuff would sort of be the staple of Durice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't include the flytrap, but yeah, the flytrap's interesting. Just in like trying to figure out what its purpose is.
I mean, like the like sort of conspiracy behind the flytrap wasn't it supposed to be like a power source or something, or like a launch pad for like Nazi UFOs or something like that? Is the fun story that's told. So maybe like in the Call of Duty version, maybe I don't know, it has something to do with the teleporters and the Dyklock, like
the
maybe.
Vril. I imagine. Yeah.
maybe it like siphons energy, or maybe it's where the supply of element 115 or something is. Because it's definitely holds some significance because of the Easter egg, like with Samantha saying, "I want to play a game." Maybe it is somehow connected to, like, that part is directly connected to the ether.
That's
But
true. Yeah.
but
Maybe
it's
the
also
beacon.
yeah.
The beacon.
Did you want to move on to the next facility? Is there any other? Do we have everything?
Got anything to say about Darius?
I think that's it for me.
Okay.
Because I feel like
Let's just ignore the giant robots.
oh yeah, the giant robots. Yeah.
It's
Are
just a
they
bit
there? Are they
confusing.
not there?
There's not really any way to define definitively if that's only a thing of the fracture or if that's a thing of the original universe too.
But like what I find that's like so funny and infuriating about it is that the sort of the head of the robot is at least in the original or where it is in the giant, you can only see it because like the wall is partially destroyed. So it's like it's not even like, oh, this is clearly out of place. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know in the original Darius, like it could technically be behind there. And it's like, oh, now we're only seeing it because this wall or whatever. But
Ooh.
I did not see them on the battlefield. They were
yes,
fully
yeah.
functional. I don't even see how you would not put out one.
Well, doing I guess they were functional in the
Yeah, because they wrote it to
yeah, they wrote it
as
to
a job.
yeah. I mean, it could be in its infancy, but yeah, I'm more inclined to believe that's just a fracture thing.
That's how I feel too. I don't know. I just felt when they connected it to Darius and Drox, so what I felt just so clearly, I just immediately it just clicked for me that it was going to be a different fracture. It was, out of it. I don't know. To me, that just felt connecting it to Darius and Drox, which then I felt also had its differences, and we'll get to all that. But that's when I felt it was separate.
Maybe they really were in their infancy because isn't it like taken out by like one shot from a Panzerschreck in the intro? So it doesn't seem like it would be that efficient. But I just want to say, if we moved on to Verrucht, I just find it so funny with mind control and everything being like a staple of the series. You don't get much at the asylum, Like I feel like that would have been an interesting place to sort of start that.
Yeah, it's pretty mysterious, despite how much we have retconned a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Those three things are just from the map description. The let's see, electroshock therapy, chemically engineered beverages, and hordes of undead. Those are the three things we have. It's just electroshock therapy. It's like testing on the patients there at the sanatorium, and then Purgacolas, I guess, are tested there, and then of course the undead.
I almost get the sense that it's just like a dumping ground. Like
Yeah,
maybe it's just the way it's
Sorry,
just
go
like
ahead.
turned out. No, it's fine. It's like the way it's just sort of the series has turned out to Verrucht, but it's just sort of like, we sort of have the breakthroughs and research like at Darius, and then we'll just send the rest sort of the follow up at Verrucht, or just to mass produce it or whatever. Or like I don't know, we just have a source of bodies or something that is useful, because it's just so weird. It just doesn't seem to hold much of a, I guess, aside from the Perca-Colas, but
Yeah, I didn't understand
really all of them. We don't really know where they originated, to be honest.
True.
And then because it just says Monty stepped in and helped them, which is also really vague.
He gave them he said he didn't make them. He gave them the tools to make them, basically. I guess like the recipe or like the way to turn 115, make it not kill you instantly.
He did sing though for them, so that was good.
Yeah, he's got a good voice. I don't know how he does it.
It's like, again, with the gameplay being canon, but it's like no one it's just always so fascinating that they had jingles. It's just like it just seems like this is a priorities. Like we have to have this beverage. I mean, maybe it has to do with the mind control. Who knows? Like if they're to make like a massly mass produced sort of consumable that I don't know. Maybe it's like, oh, it's catchy because of the pop art and the song. That's what I'm going to go with now, because otherwise it just seems so weird.
Right. Well, I would also ask, just to go ahead and say what you're gonna say, Tak.
Yeah, I don't understand why they never. Just your opening comment on how mind control was and is still. I guess there's a debate on the is, but such a important part of zombies that they never really I almost want a classified to 5 version that they give to like Verrucht. I want like a fully rethought out with the new story of Verrucht. I think that would be so much fun. And I'm kind of surprised I don't know, kind of surprised they haven't done it. There's like you said, there's just so many avenues they can take, but the writing on the wall, like I don't know.
How far
The
are we
whole
ever
Marine
now?
squad,
Yeah. I always felt, is it like sort of off topic, but like I always felt that Noct was close to Verrucht. I mean, you can even make it like one big map with like a.
Yeah,
Like
they're
it
both
just
in
because it's.
Berlin, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I think so.
I don't
Because
know.
I always got the impression that the group of Marines in Noct were the ones that went to Verrucht, or they were just two separate things.
That really might have just been headcanon. I mean, that was such a
Yeah, that's what
big
I was wondering.
thing.
Yeah.
Like that was man, there was at one point an idea that if you oh man, I'm trying to remember. I think like if you went into the woods in Verrucht, there was some like soldier chantings. There was so many rumors going around
Yeah.
that the
It was a
idea that
whole lot to
like
work
you
with.
right, like you'd wander through the Noct Forest and then roll up on Verrucht was like everyone was like, hell yeah, man, that's what's up, that's what's going on, that's what it is. But
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
it's
we
just
don't.
so. Yeah, it's just so weird because if there is no connection, it sort of even makes one of the most probably the most iconic map in the series like really have little relevance. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, just random group of Marines,
Yeah,
zombie outbreak. Like at least if it was sort of that team that was that rescue team, but I don't know. Um, I mean, at least we covered the knocked part, right? That was pretty much just an airfield where the zombies were being transported, or what was it? There was a undead transport,
Yeah, well,
and
they have strange radio signals in the dead of night. It
that's
could be anything.
yeah, it's like, oh yeah,
There's a lot
it's
of speculation. It's so
maybe
fun.
it's like it's like, oh, Area 51 isn't actually Area 51. It's like Area 52. Maybe it's the real Doris. The real Doris is under knocked, and all
oh,
of it is just like a false flag.
Uh, every map is all stacked up. You keep going deeper, you go on to the next map.
this is an idea I can get behind.
That's the
I could
Hollow Earth.
I would love that. I could totally see that was a knock remake where it's just all of a sudden it opens up and it's like some like high tech facility, and it's like it was here all along. Like this is the most important place. Um, but
That would be the way to do it, man. Oh, what a lovely idea.
Okay,
but
anything else to say on Verrucht? Yes,
I just I don't. It's a crazy place, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah.
um,
The Division 9 connection, maybe? The potential connection?
that's what I was gonna say. That was,
Or Group
you know,
601.
I'm getting more and more convinced it's not meant to be, but I'm not sure.
I can never tell, man. That was just not a twist I saw coming. I'll tell you that. If it's Div 9, like man, they're really reaching back and connecting some threads. That was
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, because you know how you guys played. Man, when was the last time you saw Verrucht in Revelations?
It's been a while since I played Revelations.
Yep.
I mean, in that map, it's like the inside obviously looks the same, but outside there's like the waterfall. It's like a jungle. It's completely
Yeah.
different. And then
Well,
also inside it has those Zetsubo pods. So it's like, is this some alternate Verrucht that's in Japan? Is that what this is
Ooh.
supposed to be? I
Well,
don't know.
there's. It also reminds me of the Verrucht and Blackout, where they expanded it, and you have the sort of the buried maze, and
Right.
like, is it?
But even that,
Is it?
it's like flat land. There's not like trees.
Yeah,
It's kind of
which is
different.
because I think if you look at the sort of the outskirts of the Verrucht map in Blackout, I mean, none of that's there or even could be there in the. There's no room for the imagination because it's kind of pretty clear. It's just interesting. Like, was that a part of a Verrucht remaster or something? Like, it just seems weird to make all that new stuff for Verruct.
Maybe
It
temporarily
almost
displaced to like
yes.
knocked or like buried. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. Show me that.
Yeah, I kind of also got vibes from the Mob of the Dead remaster, Blood of the Dead, with sort of like the warden's house, because it just seemed like you had the separate home whatever building it was on the one side of the campus.
Ooh.
So I was almost wondering, like, yeah, if there were, it just seems weird just to have it in blackout.
Right.
I don't know. I want more to Verrucht. Verrucht is so cool and probably one of the like scariest maps.
Right. End of story. We want more, and we want it now. Okay.
I want to play as John Banana. That's what I want.
Oh my god! Can you imagine that map?
He just says poetry. That's what he just says. He doesn't have any regular lines. It's just
I
poetry.
mean, technically, you have to play Dempsey too, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. 100%.
This is pre-brainwashed Dempsey.
And I bet he's the same.
I hope he's the same.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess next we'll go into Kino. We went to a little bit with the talking about Nova 6 mind control.
Let's go to Shino Numa and then close out
Kino?
Close out World at War here.
Yeah, we'll go in order. Pretty much. Kind of. Not really. But kind of.
Roughly.
Yeah, so Rising Sun Facility, Shinuma, which used to be Division 9, but then it got handed over to them in 1942.
And that's no fracture whatsoever. That's just straight in the timeline, right? Okay. Yeah. Do we want to explain why?
I mean, I got to imagine what Americans, they do Pearl Harbor, and then Americans start their Pacific push. I don't know why they'd give this up inside, I guess wherever inside the Japanese Empire.
Okay, the timeline actually says, as per... Okay, before that, Maxis requested, a bunch of stuff. And then Germany created the Asylum facility and the Kino facility. And then a couple weeks later, as per Germany's request, the Imperial Army handed over the Rising Sun facility. So it was at the Germany's request. They wanted it.
What was this? Did this I like to think, did this coincide with Stapler? Because, I just like to think maybe it was Richthofen being like, actually, I want the facility as like a backup place. So then, it explains.
This was.
Oh, isn't that? Never mind. Then that's not. Unless they're playing the long con. Yeah. Yeah, then I don't know then. That's how I would have done it. But I have no answer to that then.
Maybe there's I don't know. Yeah,
it's like a couple month period where there's a bunch of expansions. They add all their facilities in like the span of a couple months. So
that's where I wonder if there's also some corresponding. Like, I wonder what Japan's situation was like in 42. That I haven't looked up in the history. Like, maybe they really did lose some. I don't know. Maybe had some sort of shaky stuff going on at home, and so they, just like, fine, take it, Germany, go for it. You have it.
We still don't know where it is, and like, is it north, south?
Yeah, see, I was gonna say, because theory is like it's near Manchuria, right? I was thinking because the Russians were already at war with Japan for a while. Could it be that the war would have gotten in the way if if Japan was still there? But since
when is the non-aggression? Yeah, I was just looking that up. It says it was terminated, it believes, June 22nd, 1941, and July 30th, 1941 was officially declared null and void.
So this is before that.
Yeah, so that would explain it. I mean, because that's what I was I was thinking more about the connection with, when is the Siberian base established? Because I was thinking of the connection with Tunguska, and like maybe they wanted to have it closer to that base.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So I guess establishing a research facility there is not that out of the question if it's before the pact is broken.
Yeah, and that would also, if the Siberian base is established as well, I think then it would explain why they're able to get there, and then why, Japan would give it to Germany. Because like I said, it would have the, bring more significance to the Tunguska writing on the wall. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? I'd like to think that Treyarch, there was this amount in there, but at the very least, teleportation, it kind of answers that with people being sent all over the place. That it sort of explains why these random places can be set up and you know, you don't actually have to physically travel there.
Right.
But I like the idea of maybe having like a chain, and you know, if it's in Manchuria or somewhere, it's close to a waterway that you then kind of have your you know, your foothold in the east.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if so we got undead testing, obviously. They pretty much all have those, which is interesting because it seems like some of it's like for the mind, others it's just for like,
I mean,
I don't know.
do we know that? Like, I know Varrock, but like in Shinonuma, I guess there is the doctor's quarters. So I guess Richtofen was definitely doing something there.
My
Because I also
assumption is
wonder.
always that if there's zombies there in uniform, well, I guess that wouldn't apply to Shinonuma, but it's like if zombies are in uniform at like Noct or Varrock or Shinonuma, that says to me that this is part of the undead army because they've
Yeah.
specifically put these zombies in those uniforms for the army. Because like otherwise, why would there be just a bunch of dead Nazis buried at Derice? They would have to
Yeah,
be like, part of the undead army made to
Well, I
wear
was thinking
those.
for like Shinonuma, at least because you know sometimes when there's the outbreaks, like you have like the scientists and stuff like that. Like I wondered how much of it was just that they were just caught up when the outbreak happened, and
Right. Because the
but
thing is, like Shinonuma it was owned by the Imperial Army. I mean, so maybe there would be more soldiers dead and buried there. I don't know,
yeah.
but yeah,
Or like they were just there when the outbreak happened. I mean, at the very least, if Richtofen's there, I'm imagining there was some undead testing,
Mhm.
which is interesting enough. Because it's weird. Because like I said, how much of it is just like, oh, they were sort of people caught up in the inevitable collapse of the facility, and how much of it were the actual test subjects themselves.
You also got other biological experiments because you got like
Yeah.
those posters with the, like they're describing like the body with the bones where they all are. So yeah, obviously some horrible stuff going on there. Attack, what do you have to say about that?
About what?
About
you missed it.
tests.
I was getting soup. And I'm here now.
Well, yeah, I was trying to segue you back in, but
Yeah, but you gotta like lead me into it. You know, what do you think about XYZ, homie?
What do you think about your soup?
It's good. It's sausage and green bean and potato, and it's delicious. Are we still on Shinonuma?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So the thing you need to understand about Shinonuma is
The box light is yellow. It's not blue. That's my takeaway.
now that is interesting.
What were you gonna say? Nothing not as good as that, but
yeah, I was gonna say no, never as good as that. I was gonna say the meteor, baby. The gosh dang meteor. The most beautiful of incredible
they stole
things.
this from Japan. The famous
man, I love that. Right, we'll get to that in the next one here. But okay, so they've got Tunguska written all over the map, and we have this meteor here. What do you think? Is it literally
Maybe that's why they
related
wanted
to?
it.
Is it related to Tunguska at all, or is it like reminding them of that?
I feel like I think it might be a reminder of like, oh, this happened before. Like, remember Tunguska. It also sort of made me think maybe that's also the reason why the Group 935 wanted it. If there was this meteorite found, it's like, this is our specialty. Like, that's why we want the base.
Could it be that just the rock also crashed there during the Tunguska event? Like, the rock exploded in the upper atmosphere and kind of spread out across the Earth. And just, the location we know is the one specifically in Tunguska. That's what it's named for. But a portion of that went to wherever Shinonuma is.
That was my original thought until I learned about. I don't know. Once I learned that those stupid Apothicon things do that thing where they, they're like pew pew pew, and then they're like bam bam bam. That's what the meteors sound like when they go into the atmosphere. I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I'm just like, come on, That's
I guess
how
it could
this happens.
Yeah, I guess it could still break up. Yeah, it's kind of. I like the idea that it was just sort of almost like fate that a meteorite
Right.
just crashed and could set this off. I mean, I can still accept that like things are seeded here and there, but yeah, to have everything. I mean, is that the implication now that every 115 meteorite was just at one point thrown by the?
I mean, by nature of a cycle, I mean, if it happens every time, is it really a random event? I suppose.
Well,
What's
it
the
meant more
difference?
of
If
like.
it comes out of a big mouth versus the space, I guess.
Yeah, but I meant more of like it's mechanistically like tied to the universe versus like it was just an apothecon spitting it out. Where
Yeah,
like it just so
I see
happens
what
that yeah,
I don't know. I would say
mechanically.
probably multiple of those meteors are probably sourced from the same, big rock, and that's to me.
It broke into little rocks.
Right, but I mean, then there's also the situation of
Mhm.
the Purnell radio we talked about, where he gives coordinates to specifically Tunguska for some reason. Like, why would Peter need that?
How's that help him? Well, right. That's. Okay. So here's question.
As we say, it could be the code to like rendezvous at Shinonuma.
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know?
So this is what I was gonna ask though. Do we think? Okay. I've come to learn. I feel like over the years that the writing on a lot of the walls in the map are the people. Are like people on that map. Experiencing things. So like, do we?
Like with someone having like a vision. You mean?
Well, I don't. No, I don't even know. I guess I was going to say that I thought it was almost like what we had written in the prelude to what we've seen, but I don't know if that's actually true. So my point is, who do you think wrote the Tunguska stuff on Shinonuma? Right? Like, where is that Monty and that they retcon into it being that? Like, who did that?
But I think Monty. I think Chalk, when it looks, the way it is, where it's kind of glowy. I think that is it. To me, it always seems strange that someone would write like the stuff that's like in Kino, like Beware the Six. I guess that makes sense, but like Brimstone to Damnation. Who writes that unless they're insane and they're seeing something from some outer, being, some other place.
Is it ever explicitly stated that Monty is like literally drawing it, or could it be sort of as someone as sort of like his
yeah, it could be through someone else. Yeah.
Because like I guess like mechanically it could just be like someone draw, like I don't know, it kind of gave me the idea, because like the idea of just writing Tunguska almost remind, like I picture either someone having like some like religious epiphany or like some sort of like mad occultist or someone just writing Tunguska, like, so maybe that's how it kind of all connects, is that maybe Monty is sending these people who are just losing it these visions, and then they'll put it on the board. But it could also be Monty himself nudging people.
So I guess this is a good time to go into Kino.
Are the mind control place, right?
Yeah, this is where they. What does Richtofen say? He says they used a screen to give them instruction or something like that.
The screen in the sort of the center stage, right, where there's the.
He says something like the screen is there to implant the instruction, and they use like film reels.
I mean, it seems sort of. I mean, we're dealing with like super tech, so I guess it's not like anachronistic. But in the, I think it's the Kino loading screen with all the people like watching. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, do you mean
sort
the
of the
computer?
Knocked one. That's what it is. Yeah. Like, could that be a part of Kino, or is that
Maybe that one's still an enigma we're talking about.
Yeah, because like I feel like that's, or maybe it's like the Americanized version of the brainwashing. Because like I don't know, it's just weird. Would they just bring the zombies into the theater, or just strap the people down in the like chairs, kind of like Clockwork Orange style, and just have them like listen to the instructions? Kino was also interesting because the teleporter sends you to
the house.
the house. It sends you to the Pentagon. So like I always felt like there was an underlying like Kino is really significant. And it never really like kind of went anywhere.
They never had it calibrated correctly or something. Like that's not it. That's not intentional. So like they're tapping in. Either it's they're tapping into I don't know, they're tapping into something that allows them to.
It's like maybe like a web. Like if where you teleport somewhere, it kind of like creates a line, and then maybe if all that gets entangled, instead of going from like a linear point A to point B, like yeah, like you said, if it's not calibrated, you get like you follow like the tubes, and then maybe you take like a wrong turn, and you're like in
Oh,
this place and that place. Like it's kind of all like if you're like drilling like a bunch of underground tunnels that become interconnected or something.
yeah,
So
like just almost when it got overcharged right by the DG2 or when
Yeah.
in Call of the Dead, I forget exactly how Richtofen phrases it, but he's like the time circuits are fried. Right? Like a little something like that.
So it could be maybe like at one point in time, maybe someone from Kino went to these places or whatever, and like because you've messed up time, the notion of being at a specific time itself, you get sent wherever this has been in any of existence. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I also want to use this moment to bring up how much I enjoyed I when you brought up the teleporting into Reese, I immediately thought of Kino and all of the old theories about how perfectly the Kino teleporters are set up, where one, they have the teleporter in the main theater area, and then in the
Mm.
lobby you've got the where you end up, and so just all of the beautiful cinematic theory ideas that would come up from Maxis teleporting, just like okay, he's presenting it to a bunch of people inside the theater, he hits the teleporter and then shows up in the doors behind him. So like so
Mm.
many people thought just because of that like that cinematic value that
Oh
that
yeah,
people, we
like
people, yeah, they were like, okay, Kino is as important as Doris in, like selling the 935 project, just for some of that artistry that they can tell through Kino and that teleporting. And I always thought that was really interesting.
I like that too because of it. If you have the idea of like the time circuits and stuff broken, it's sort of like in a weird way, kind of like a broken cycle because it's just meant to send you to the front, but then it's like sending you all over the place. You can't even like do that like loop. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
if you're just supposed to get teleported to from the theater, what was it, the stage to like the back or the entrance, but then you wind up in the Pentagon for some bizarre reason.
well, what I find interesting about Kino is that I associate Kino heavily with Maxis because the timeline says Maxis was basically there for like 3 years trying to, make the undead army work, and he only comes back to Darius when it fails. So like, to me that says this is because Richtofen. I mean, Maxis didn't know that Richtofen had already perfected teleportation at this point. So that to me says maybe the Kino teleporter is like his faulty, the one he tried to make, the one he tried to perfect, and it's like not sending him to the correct places, or maybe it is sending him actually where he wants to go. He just can't get it to have him actually end up in the Gartha. That might be an interesting thought, but to me that specific teleporter on Kino it seemed like a product of Maxis. I'm curious why it does what it does.
Yeah, it's just interesting too because it's just one teleporter. I mean, I guess the reason why you had multiple teleporters in Doris was just for sort of the experimental value of it. But it's just I don't know. I'm so used to the map kind of having multiple points, and there's to be one central focus is kind of interesting. Which maybe thinks, I mean, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's because it was perfected. Like these were just sort of the receiving ends of I guess all their stations had like a teleportation like pad, like maybe a receiver and a sender, and that's why there's just only one. It's just kind of like right there.
Mhm.
Um, like you just kind of
Yeah,
jump from
it's
station
connected
to
by
station.
wire rather than like wirelessly.
Yeah. And then like yeah, then someone just gets sent from Doris to, you know, Kino. Because I mean, we never really get an explanation why there are three teleporters. Like I just always assumed it was because they were experimenting with it. Because then you
Yeah,
need them. Yeah, you need them to power it up.
yeah, that's a good point. So I mean, this is a good first episode. There are plenty more Group 95 facilities, so we'll definitely have a part two in the near future. So look forward to that. Any final thoughts on Verruct, Numa, Darius, or Kino?
As time goes on, it's probably going to become even more confusing. as we inevitably revisit these places in the future.
Yeah.
I am just in love with the Doris and Kino duo and the way that they were able to really push the story forward in those maps. It was really fun. I really wonder if they I don't know, it's so funny how we talk about how gameplay has to determine, story sometimes and vice versa. And so it's just so funny that Kino was always the rumored DLC, what at 5, and
Yeah.
right, and so it's like, but then we get Kino in, then they have to do like a teleportation jump between World at War and Black Ops, to make the map seem current with everything that they're building. And it's just so funny that I wonder what it would have been like if it really did come out back then. Anything they would have changed? I don't know.
Well, it's like the idea of would time travel have been implemented? Because I often think that like you needed to have some type of explanation for why they're trying to, and then they later abandoned it in Black Ops. But at least initially, keeping with the Cold War era, it's sort of weird that to think that if it was Map Pack 4, I think if it was that the legendary Map Pack, would it have? Would we ever have gotten? We probably would have gotten time travel at some point, but yeah, they probably would have dropped that element.
That's true.
Yeah, it's just so funny the evolution of just the. It's funny playing more multiplayer now than I ever have as well, just to see how they have to adapt and change. Being on a yearly cycle, and it's funny in Zombies thinking of that too. Just like having to. You don't get to build out World at War. You get to build a new series in Black Ops, and you've got to do something different with it. So it's just funny how it's inevitable that the moon blows up, and then that Origins, and then just like that we keep moving down this path of just
it's just completely like its own game.
Yeah.
It's I think aside from I think the Volkswagen and the like, was it the radio tower or water tower? I forget what it is, but were those the only two indicators that it takes place in the night? And obviously the guns and Rick Coffin. The bird, okay.
And the tower.
Those were the three things where it was the wall and then the tower, but it wasn't just that it was the tower, it was that the tower was unfinished. And so that gave you a time. It was a few years before it was finished, so that like really pinned it into the 60s. And then you had the the Volkswagen, which people pinned down. They said, okay, we know what I think it was West Berlin had Volkswagens and East did not, so we know this is right on the wall, West Berlin, 1965 or whatever.
And it's just sort of interesting because then it kind of ties into the theme of like how it's boarded up and like abandoned. But I wonder, like you said, like what it would have been like if it wasn't set in the 60s. Because like everything, I guess my point was, aside from the guns, that kind of roots it is outside the map. So like, was the map pretty much going to be the same if it was set in the 1940s?
Right. Because it still has the swastikas, right? Just hanging.
Yeah. And I just wonder, like the it being boarded up gives it this feel that it's been abandoned for a long time. So, like, it just seems weird, especially if this was sort of if this facility was just overrun or I don't know, maybe it was out of use for a few years or something. But it just seems weird that like you would have had all the boards. I think at least in the starting room. That if it was something that was just just in use like a few years ago.
Yeah, it's good talk, guys. Good talk about Group 95. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.